How's it going, Twitch? My name is Skull, and on behalf of East Asia Soft, welcome to tonight's stream. Tonight, we are continuing our playthrough of If My Heart Had Wings, out now for Nintendo Switch. There is a physical version available through PlayAsia. If you want it, you should probably go get it, because there are not that many copies left. I wouldn't doubt that by the next time I come back and continue my playthrough of this game, that they might be gone, so better head over there and get that. We saw this scene last time, and that's all you get to see now. Music's a little loud, actually. Hang on. Here we go. So yeah, if you want to see that more for yourself, you could go to our YouTube channel and rewatch the series from the beginning, which I recommend you do anyway if you don't plan on buying this game, or buy the game and see it all for yourself. So, let's load in and continue our journey. Beautiful, beautiful game. So where we left off, Agea had just said, "Okay, everyone, for rather a long time I have caused you all a lot of inconvenience, but I'm guessing she's finally going to focus on the club?" Yeah! A small round of applause echoed around the garage. You were so close. If you'd won 2 more matches, you would have made it through to the prefectural qualifiers. In the local qualifiers of the robot contest that was held yesterday, Agea and her team of juniors lost in the 3rd match. If a team won in the 4th round, they would win the right to enter the national championship. Losing in the 3rd round wasn't exactly a great result. To make it worse, the opposing team won the next round too. They become friends. I'm so happy to hear that. Since Agea was in 2 clubs at the same time, when we had any time to spare, we would go and help the robotics club. On the day of the contest, we helped carry the equipment to the venue. It was the first time I'd been to see the robot contest, and it was pretty interesting. The teams weren't just there to win, they also wanted to do their best to show their ideas and how great their robots were. Even when they gave a performance that might put them at a disadvantage in the match, they didn't ease up. When I saw this, I began to understand how Agea had become so obsessed with it. I had no idea. When on earth did she do that? It's good that they wanted to win. If you don't aim for the top, you can't win matches. Oh. Agea spoke in a formal tone. We should be happy to hear that, but oh man, Tobioka. I'm worried.
実は前から決めてたんです。ロボット作りもいいけど、今はグライダーの方が楽しいんで。というわけで、 今後はこっち一本で行きますのでよろしく。
We all let out a big cheer, and the garage was filled with much more rapturous applause this time.
ってことはいよいよ主翼制作ラストスパートね。葵はパイロット訓練に戻ってちょうだい。
No, it's okay. I can help too.
ダメダメ、主翼が完成したら速攻でテストフライトするんだから。それまでに操縦を完璧に覚えること。パイロット譲ってやったんだからビシッと決めてもらうわよ。
I will. I had a role to fulfill. Finally, the first test flight was just around the corner. We still haven't seen those twins yet. When are we going to see those two girls from way earlier? Extend the little wings which fly in the sky.
ごめんください。はーい。どちら様？
Kaneko in her PJs again. Poor Hotoru.
ほら、セクハラ女、来客にいちいち裸で対応するんじゃない。下着はつけてるよ。あなた、アゲハの妹ちゃんよね。あ、はい、そうです。姫にホタルです。ハバネさんでしたよね。小鳥でいいわ。小鳥ちゃんとかで。小鳥ちゃん。小鳥さん、あーちゃんいますか？
うん。
アゲハ、妹ちゃんが来てるわよ。おー、ホタル。
Ageha brought Hotaru into the... Yeah, okay. Wow. I was reading that right, and then my brain just decided to stop working. Ageha brought Hotaru into the dining hall where everyone was having breakfast.
あーちゃん、着替え持ってきたよ。サンキュー。お母さんどう？なんか言ってた？帰ってきたらお尻キックだって。仕方あるまい。
Hi, Hotaru.
おはよう、兄。
You want some breakfast?
いい。うちで食べてきたから。あまねちゃん、悪いんだけどハートに餌やっといて。ああ、任せろ。おいでハート。お前ご機嫌だな。ここはご飯が美味しいからな。
A few days had passed since the dormitory became our camp. It had become our routine to get together to eat breakfast. It was really lively, so it made it feel more like a camp. Also, we had a special need to have a good breakfast this day. Unlike usual, the work we had to do today would test our endurance. Good, forces dominated eat.
快晴か。また一段と暑そうね。ねえ、妹ちゃん、どうだった？すごくいいお天気でした。もう日焼け止め塗っとかないとやばいかな。ああ、そうだ。あんたも暇なら手伝ってよ。いいよ。私にできることならだけど。うん、できるできる。誰でもできるけど人手がいるんだ。また翼を磨くの？今日はね、滑走路を作るのよ。
Oh!
滑走路を作る？
That's interesting. I didn't even
こ
think
こ
about
が
that.
滑走路だ。
Didn't even think about having to make a runway. Ooh, new visual. In the middle of the field. We stared at the wide, open, empty lot, overgrown with lush grass, in complete bewilderment.
ここ全部私たちで綺麗にするの？ああ、そうだ。覚悟してたこととはいえ、実際に見るとおじけづくわね。
We were on the verge of finishing the main wings, so we were busily getting things ready for the test flight. This was one of those things, the construction of a runway. The grassy field was on the other side of the lake and was a wide, flat area with no gradient. When we heard the word runway, we all imagined it would be paved with asphalt, like an airfield.
やはり夏場は雑草の成長が早いな。
Tell me about it. Amongst the grass were overgrown weeds that would need pulled out. We were building a glider with our own hands, and now we'd be making a runway too. We had to tidy this place up. That was why we called for some help.
なんで俺がこんなことしなきゃなんねえんだよ。
Oh, they got him.
そんなこと言っていいんだ。エリちゃんにあんたの恥ずかしい秘密ばらすわよ。
汚ねえ、マジ汚ねえこの女。
あんたこそ余計なことベラベラ喋って、本当ならお尻キックかましてやるところよ。
やっぱこいつ中身は男だよ。
Agea had persuaded Masatsugu to come and help us.
さすがにきつそうだけど、頑張るっきゃないか。
Kaneko had come to help us too, on the condition that I prepare her meals over the summer holidays.
私にできるかな。
Hotaru, who had only come to bring a change of clothes for Agea, was brought along to help with the work too.
わわ
And there's Hattie. And then there was Hattie. Ducks eat weeds, so we didn't need to force him. We just brought him out for a stroll. But isn't this private property?
ああ、そうだ。この広場の所有者はソアリング部の OB らしい。
Ooh. So, the owner had been in the soaring club long before Amane and the others had revived it.
定期的に草刈りをすることを条件に無償で貸してくださっている。
Wow.
それじゃ始めましょう。無駄口叩いてたら日が暮れちゃうわよ。
At the command of Hotori Habane, second in charge of the club, we began cutting the grass. Working in such sweltering heat made it all the more difficult. There was nothing to block the direct sunlight, and the wind from the lake was only just enough to slightly cool us down. It's so hot! The towel I had wrapped around my head in place of a hat was already drenched in sweat. We all need to make sure we don't get heat stroke. It's said that you must keep drinking fluids at regular intervals. Hydrate! Remember to hydrate, everyone. On a day as hot as today, it's best to drink something before you start to feel thirsty.
もうダメ。ちょっとコンビニ行ってきていいか。
情けないな。男の子でしょ。
こちとらバイトとバンドと恋に夢中なもやしっこなんだ。
Kotari, are you okay?
平気よ。お尻が超ムレムレだけど。
We thought that it might be difficult for Kotari to do the weeding from her wheelchair, but even so, she wanted to do it. I was worried that without thinking of the conditions, Kotari would get carried away and collapse. Here, have some of this sports drink.
Thank you.
What is it, Hotaru?
虫が。
Aww. A grasshopper had jumped out from the grass that she was about to cut. Hey, it's just a grasshopper. Hotaru was hiding behind me, scared. I caught the grasshopper and put it down in an area that we had finished cutting. Don't get caught by Hattie, buddy. He'll eat you. Grasshoppers are a duck's favorite thing to eat. Which I never thought of. I guess I never thought about what ducks like to eat.
ありがとう、青鬼。
Kaneko was cutting down the long weeds along one side of the field, using the lawnmower that Agea had borrowed from a local farm. There was no need to pull them out from the roots as long as they weren't long enough to get tangled to the wheels.
ほら、ハット先輩、邪魔だよ。 ミンチになっちゃうよ。カッカッ。
Hattie sometimes tried to mess around with the lawnmower, thinking that it was a living thing.
ねえ葵くん、その子をどっか連れてっといて。
My dog Norma would do that with our lawnmower every single time we mowed. It was not fun. Okay, no problem. Hattie started to go crazy as I carried him away, as he didn't like being picked up. Alright, here should be okay.
やあ、ハット。は
Amane, could you take care of him?
あ。いいぞ。
Unlike usual, the work we had to do today would test our endurance. By the way, that time you did the test flight before, it took off from here, didn't it?
そうだ。
How was the grass at that time?
私と顧問の山野辺先生とでやった。必要な部分だけだが。
Huh? The advisor?
おう、顧問だ。
Advisor? I guess that clubs usually have one of those. But I hadn't seen him even once. Hey, Agea,
お、何？
do you know Mr. Yamanobe?
ああ、あの若い男の先生。頼りなくてひょろっとしてる？
I hear he's our advisor.
うん、知ってるよ。
She knew about that? As I should have expected. Why doesn't he come to see our club activities?
前の顧問の先生が定年退職なさって、代わりに顧問になってくれたのが山野辺先生だ。先生はグライダーについては素人だし、あまり興味もないようだ。あの先生事なかれ主義だからね。飛岡先生に頭上がらないし。
So, you got him to help out when you did your first test flight?
うん。山野辺先生は人手が足りない時だけ協力してくれるんだ。グライダーを飛ばすには一人では無理だからな。
I wasn't sure what kind of person this Mr. Yamanobe was, but it sounded like he might be in a difficult position. We probably should do our best not to be a burden to him. I thought about that as I worked hard on building the runway. By the end of the day, everyone was covered in dirt and seemed especially eager for a long bath. In that manner, the preparations for the test flight gradually proceeded. We were doing everything for the first time and approached even the more tedious jobs with enthusiasm. Thought someone was knocking at my door. Never mind. Excuse me. Then, one day in August, no, it's September, at long last,
できた！
the main wings were finally completed. Everyone looked at the giant white wings with an indescribable feeling. Of so many things that happened for us to get this far. Is she gonna cry?
やったね、小鳥。
Kotori looks so close to tears. What are you getting all teary for?
だって私こんなに頑張ってそれがちゃんと形になったのってもうずっとなかったから。
Aww. I knew how she felt. However, it's still too early, right?
そうそう、そういうのは飛んでからにしようよ。そうね。
Kotori wiped her eyes with her sleeve, and with renewed motivation moved over to the plane.
歪みもない。表面も限りなく滑らかだ。
Amane looked uncharacteristically serious as she checked over the completed wings. Distortions inhibit the normal flow of air, reducing lift. Also, unevenness and even the finest scratches on the surface could cause friction and create drag.
いい翼だ。
After getting Amane's seal of approval, Agea and Kotuli high-fived each other. At some point, these two had formed a great partnership.
これで飛べるのよね。あ、飛べる。
That's exciting! At long last, we were ready to do the test flight the next day. Okay, and stop! We were up early the next morning. The time had finally come to do the test flight. In order to test the glider, we had to take it to the runway. We put the glider on a special trailer so it could be towed by a truck.
ようやく完成したか。
Tatsuya, who had brought the truck from his factory, spoke out loud to himself when he saw the finished wings. We had to get permission for Tatsuya to bring his truck into the school grounds. That was the first time I had met the advisor, Mr. Yamanobe. As I had imagined, he was an honest and good person, but seemed a little timid.
できたよ、あーちゃん。
Agea lifted her head to let us know that the trailer had been connected to the truck.
トレーラーの中で機体が擦れたりしないようちゃんとチェックしとけよ。
The glider had been separated into several parts and loaded into the trailer. If the parts weren't secured properly, they could get damaged by the friction caused by the movement of the trailer.
ここちょっと緩いんじゃない？
Agea, could you grab a towel? I put the towel into the gap to act as cushioning. That should do it.
よし、じゃあ行くか。助手席はハバネさん。あとは荷台に乗り込め。お前ら手を貸してやってくれ。
Agea and I lifted Kotuli up and onto the passenger seat.
私も後ろが良かったな。
Kotuli grumbled. I couldn't say I didn't know how she felt. Agea and I took her wheelchair and got into the cargo bed with the others.
準備はいいか？
オッケーだよ。
よーし、出発だ。
He started the engine, and we drove towards the runway, towing the trailer along behind us. It's flying day, y'all! Hi, Leandra, how you doing?
はーい、みんな。
As we arrived at the runway, Amane, who had gotten here first, waved to greet us. Tatsuya parked the truck next to the runway, and we jumped out of the cargo bed.
あー、楽しかった。
I've always wanted to ride in the cargo bed of a truck.
いいな、二人とも。
Aww. We helped Kotuli, who seemed quite dejected, out of the passenger seat and back into her wheelchair. While we did that, Tatsuya disconnected the trailer from the truck.
達也、
よ、あまね。
すまないな。手伝ってもらって。
なーに、いいってことよ。あいつらのためならな。
うん。
それに、俺だって無関係じゃないだろ。何せ OB なんだからな。
そうだったな。
本当はこいつが飛ぶところを見ていきたいんだが。
Tatsuya, are you leaving? I was listening from a little further away and I couldn't help butting in.
これから仕事なんだ。
あんちゃんにも見てほしかったな。
大丈夫だ。ここで飛べばうちの工場からも見える。
絶対見ててね。
ああ。だからしっかりやれよ。
Tatsuya gave a great big smile and then drove off in his truck. As soon as Tatsuya left, we immediately began to reassemble the glider. Aw, I'm sorry to hear that, Leandro. Hope you feel better soon. After all, the aircraft was still in pieces on the trailer. First, we put the fuselage on the ground, and then we took out the two main wings. Kotori, keep an eye out and make sure it doesn't hit anything.
オッケー。
Agea, Amane, and I lifted up one of the main wings and attached it to the fuselage.
風に気をつけてくれ。そよ風程度でも翼は揚力を発生させてしまうからな。
This is exciting! If a strong wind was to blow against us, the lift generated would send the wing and us along with it flying. After we attached the main wings, next was the horizontal tail plane.
ゆっくりね。ゆっくりだよ。
We carefully assembled it, taking care not to bump it into anything and scratch it.
おお。
As we stood in front of the completed glider, we were all filled with deep emotion.
こんな風になるんだ。
It's huge.
でも、綺麗。
Until now, we didn't really know what our aircraft would look like when it was fully completed. Compared to the regular planes that we were all familiar with, it looked kind of odd. Particularly the unusually long wings that looked unbalanced compared to the slightly stubby-looking fuselage. I looked at it in wonder. Looking at each part and knowing that in order to fly, there was a reason for all of it, to me was something incredibly beautiful.
チェックを始めるぞ。
Amane gave out instructions to everyone while holding the printed checklist in one hand.
工具は揃っているか？全部あります。
Before we flew, we had to make sure that we all had our tools used in assembly. If there were anything missing, it would probably be because it was still attached to the aircraft. If that were the case, it could cause an accident.
車輪の空気。
There's enough in them.
ピトー缶詰まってないか？
Heh, they have a duck. They have a duck. It's Hattie on the front.
大丈夫よ。それから。
There was a wide range of different things to check. We checked for wear and tear on the aircraft and even checked to see if any bugs had made nests anywhere. To someone on the outside, it might seem silly, but considering that we would be flying in this thing, we couldn't really say that. For example, if a bug jammed one of the instruments, it could distract the pilot and cause an accident. That was why we had to check these things before the flight. By assembling the glider and doing all the checks ourselves, we were able to gain a deeper understanding of how it worked. Amane said that she had made some revisions to a checklist made by one of the old members.
じゃあ次はポジティブコントロールチェックだ。
Amane got into the cockpit as she spoke.
右エルロン。
The rest of us went to the right aileron and held onto it, resisting its movement. Amane moved the yoke to operate the aileron. If the yoke can be moved with no resistance, it's possible that the couplings between the yoke and the aileron have been severed. If it were a car, it would be like the steering wheel became detached from the wheels. These checks were also carried out on the rudder and elevator.
オールオッケーです。じゃあ今度は葵くんが後部座席に乗ってくれ。
Amane got out and I sat in the back seat. Then we repeated the same checks.
フラップ、ダイブブレーキもバッチリよ。
After the assembly checks had all been completed, I got out of the cockpit. Everyone lined up for the briefing.
今日は風も穏やかで、テストフライトにはちょうどいい日だな。
Amane normally explained precautions at this point, but spoke with a gloomy look on her face that contradicted what she was saying.
だから怖がる必要はないぞ。きっとうまくいくからな。
Thanks for the vote of confidence.
怖がってるのあまねちゃんでしょ。
Kotori spoke quite tactlessly, causing Amane to freeze up. Then, She started shivering.
風がないとグライダーは飛ばない。そういう意味じゃ今日はフライト日和とは言えないな。
Hey, what are you saying?
ちょっと小鳥、どうすんのよ。いや、どうって言われても。よーし、今日は中止にしよう。組み立ての練習ができたんだからもういいよな。こーら、何言ってんの。ここまで来たら普通飛ぶでしょうが。いや、君たちはまだ初心者だから知らないだろうが、グライダーのフライトには本来もっと荒れた日の方が。あまねちゃんがビビってるだけでしょ。
That's what I think.
だってそういう時は手のひらにひとって字をたくさん書いて飲み込めばいいのよ。やだ、そんな迷信信じないぞ。
Poor Amane, I haven't seen her like this before. Actually bona fide scared. She sounded like a kid when she said that.
大丈夫ですって。風が穏やかな方が安定して飛べるだろうし。
I think so too.
やだ、怖い。
Oh, she said she's scared.
しょうがないわね。アゲハ、葵くん。
At Kotori's signal, again I held Amane firmly from each side.
うわ、何をする。すみません、あまね先輩。
It's for your own good.
やめろ、離せ。
While we held on to Amane, who struggled against us, Kotori slowly approached us.
人こんだけ書けば十分でしょう。
Kotori then readied herself and... Hey, there's no need to...
やだ、やめろ。ノラ
Slap. Rather than making Amane do some deep breathing, Kotori slapped her right across the face. It looked like a scene from an action movie, where three bad guys team up to hurt one of the good guys.
これでどう？少しは怖くなくなったでしょ？腹が。
Having had some fighting spirit slapped into her, Amane held her nose.
ちょっと聞きすぎたかしら。
Why did you slap her in the face like that?
あまね先輩の鼻が縮んで美人が台無しになったらどうすんの？
Okay. It was totally crazy. Amane, are you alright?
平気だ。ありがとう、みんな。少しだけ勇気が出たよ。
Amane started to walk towards the winch as she gave us a little smile. See? Okay, she's operating the winch. Got it.
よし、成功ね。
What do you mean?
先輩は私のアイドルなんだからね。うたた、何を二人して。
Kotobi chased us off as we went off the head. On one side of the runway was a huge machine that looked like a household generator. This was a winch. A glider, which has no thrust of its own, cannot fly into the air by itself, but there are different ways for it to take off. One was to use a towing plane. A regular plane is used to tow the glider into the air, where it is then released. This can only be done if you can get it to a certain altitude to begin with. However, if you don't have an airplane, which are expensive, you have to use another method. That's where the winch comes in. To explain it rather simply, it's a machine which reels in a rope using a giant motor. The glider is connected to the end of the rope, which is then lifted to a great height to make it take off, just like a kite. The difference is that the glider is huge and quite heavy, so naturally the winch has to be heavy too.
最初はフルパワーで、機体が地面から約30度に達したら徐々にパワーを緩めていって。
Amane taught Kotori how to use the winch. She had already explained this a few days ago, and we tested operating it before, so it was just a recap. Amane and I were the pilots. Kotori operated the winch, and Agea helped with takeoff and landing, as well as ground control. By the way, the winch isn't as expensive as a plane, but it was quite pricey. It was used and maintained by previous members of the Soaring Club and had been in service for many years. To be honest, our equipment had gone way beyond the scope of regular high school club activities.
オッケー、わかったわ。それじゃ、離陸準備に入ろう。
Alright. We walked back from the winch towards the aircraft. It was about a kilometer away, so it took us a while. Amane got into the front seat, and I got into the back seat.
シートベルト、しっかり締めてね。
As Agea told me to do that, I checked the seatbelt several times.
ペダルに足は届いているか？動かしにくい部分はないか？
It's alright. The canopy, the transparent lid that covers the cockpit, closed.
キャノピーがロックされているか確認してくれ。
Okay? I checked the lock. If it's not properly locked, it may open during flight, which is really dangerous. Amane performed a final check of the flight controls. Outside the canopy, Agea checked the rope extending from the winch and connected to the glider.
先輩、レリースのチェックお願いします。
Amane operated the release lever, and immediately the hook holding the rope was released. If this isn't released, it's possible that a big accident could occur, so it must be checked before landing.
オーケーです。
Agea gave us a signal from outside and connected the tow rope once again. We suddenly felt a lot more nervous. We were about to fly through the air in our aircraft. It still didn't feel real. For a start, could an aircraft that we made ourselves actually fly? There's no engine and it can't even flap its wings like a bird, so will it really be alright? I'd had the theory explained to me many times, but you don't get a feeling for what it's really like from theory alone. If you wanted that, the only way was to fly. Finally, we were to fly. Finally. Poor Amane. Amane?
大丈夫。怖くない、怖くない。みんなが作ってくれた翼は、私のなんかよりずっと優れている。だから大丈夫。
Yes.
さっき小鳥が恐怖心を追い払ってくれたし。でも、いざとなったら頼んだぞ、葵くん。
Leave it to me. That was why I trained on the simulator until I got sick of it. In my head, I went over the steps for takeoff. The most dangerous part of the flight was the landing. However, the takeoff was also dangerous and accidents could easily occur. I could rely on Amane this time, but I needed to learn a lot to understand even a little about how it's done. Agea tapped the canopy from outside.
準備いい？
As we replied, ready, Agea walked to the left wing that was touching the ground and lifted it so the aircraft became level. The wings of a glider are long, and it can't stand on its wheels like a normal plane, so it's placed with a wing touching the ground. That's why, when launching it, someone has to run along holding the wing up until it gains lift. Agea, who was holding up the wing, gave the signal that launch preparations were completed to Kotori, who was waiting far away.
行くぞ、葵くん。
As Amane spoke quietly to me. Whoosh. The aircraft suddenly lifted up. Pulled by the winch, the glider quickly accelerated. The wheels bounced along the unpaved runway. Agea ran along while holding up the left wing. I looked at her from the side and our eyes met.
行ってこい
Whoosh. A few seconds after the aircraft started moving along the runway, it felt like it was drifting upwards. That was after moving along only a few meters. As it accelerated, the glider started to rise slightly.
上昇するぞ
Amine pulled back on the yoke. The aircraft pointed upwards. I didn't know what the angle was exactly, but it felt like it was really steep.
あっがれ
Got a movie. Whoa! My whole body was shaking from the G-force. The floating sensation felt equal to the feeling of being pulled by the winch. I looked through the canopy. However, at this angle, the main wings blocked my field of vision, and I could hardly see the ground at all. How high are we now? Being unsure of the situation sowed the seeds of fear in my mind.
平行線広がらす
The feeling of being pulled disappeared, and the aircraft floated gently on the air, like it had been set free. That was because it had been released from the winch. We're flying! From that moment, the glider was no longer borrowing power from something else. It was flying all by itself. This strange feeling of floating. I've never experienced it before. The sound of the wind was extremely loud.
葵君平行策を確認してくれ
Ooh! I turned around to see the tow rope had been safely released. The rope, with a small parachute attached, fell slowly to the ground. Release confirmed.
よし離陸成功だ
The glider was able to fly into the sky without any problems.
飛んでるちゃんと空飛んでるよアゲハ見て見て飛んでるよ見てるよすごい私たちが作った翼が飛んでるああやって飛ぶんだ
This is great.
やっぱり感慨深いものがあるわね
They're so happy and they're not even in there.
あ、ロープが降りてきた回収しとかなくちゃいいな、葵くん
We really are flying. This is awesome.
下が見ない方がいいぞ怖いからな
Remember, Amine has a fear of heights. One of the greatest paradoxes ever. An oxymoron. You don't need to look down. Please keep looking straight ahead.
ラジャ
I checked the ground in place of Amine. We were about 1,000 feet above the ground. Oh, Agea's going to get the tow rope. The tow rope that comes out from the winch was attached to the bottom of the aircraft by a hook. The hook can be detached any time from the cockpit, and this is usually done just before the glider reaches the point above the winch. Even if there is a problem with the controls for detaching it, once the glider goes past the winch and is pulled from behind, it automatically releases, after which a small parachute is opened, and it falls slowly back to the ground. If it's not detached, it can cause a terrible accident, so we must check to see if it has been released. As I sat in the back seat, I enjoyed the view from 1,000 meters above the ground. A kilometer high. We're flying over the city. I could see the roof of Flying Fish Manor, which was quite close to the runway. I could see Agea's house, which looked tiny. Ah, it's the school! Wow, we're really flying.
あんまり飛んでると言わないでくれないか。意識してしまうじゃないか。
Oh, sorry. I held my tongue and enjoyed my first flight. When I saw the glider flying from below, it looked like it was really carefree as it flew, and once you actually ride it, it really does feel carefree after all. The rushing sound of the wind and the feeling of the wind going right through my body. These are things you don't get from the simulator. These are the forces that keep the glider, which has no thrust, in the air. Even when the aircraft dips down slightly, it doesn't feel like it's falling. It flies leisurely through the wind.
この翼はすごいな。
What's that?
安定感が抜群にいい。ね、私が作ったものとはまるで違う。
It's all thanks to those guys.
ああ、降りたらいっぱいハグしよう。旋回する。
She tilted the yoke to the right as she spoke. The aircraft leaned to the right all of a sudden. Whoa!
うわっと。
Amane returned the yoke to its original position and corrected the aircraft, which had banked too far. But she moved it too much and it banked over to the left. Amane, what are you doing?
だってこれ。何やってるのかしら、あれ。さあ、主翼のテストかな。にしてはなんかヤバげだね。もしもし、あまねちゃん。もしもし、あまねちゃん。
We received a radio transmission from Kotori.
フラフラしてるけど大丈夫？大丈夫じゃないかも。
Amane, calm down. A few moments earlier, Amane had tried to level the aircraft and leaned it too far to one side, and then back again, over and over.
エルロンが敏感すぎて。葵くん、出番よ。
Oh, okay. Amane, I'm taking over.
頼む。
Amane let go of the controls. In her place, I took over the controls from the back seat. Two-seater gliders have the same controls in both the front and back seats. Just like I did in the simulator. I tried turning it using the yoke to control the ailerons and the elevator, as well as the pedals to control the rudder. I tilted the yoke to the right and the aircraft banked. Normally, you move the yoke back to the middle after banking, but in this case, it needed to be moved slightly to the opposite direction. And that is what you call counter steer. Ah, I get it now.
どうしたの、葵くん。
The reaction of the ailerons is too sensitive, but it's okay. It won't be a problem. Being too sensitive meant that when I moved the yoke a bit, the ailerons moved more than usual, so the aircraft tilted too far. It had been modified incorrectly. If the clumsy Amane were to use sensitive controls like these, it could be a bit dangerous.
大丈夫かな。大丈夫よ。いざとなったら湖に飛び込めばなんとかなるわ。いや、ならないでしょそれ。地面に落ちるよりマシよ。お、治ってきた。
Alright, doing good. Whew. Seems like we're level again.
丈夫なのか、葵くん。
Yeah, That was no problem. The glider was a little hard to maneuver, but it was just fine once I got used to it. Okay, I'll pilot it for a while. I flew once around the runway. Slowly guided the aircraft and made it turn around above Kotori and Agea. From above, I could see them both waving. I wonder if Tatsuya is watching us too. I could just about make out the roof of Tatsuya's factory from here. I turned a little more so we were above the lake. Shall we go to the other side of the lake?
今日は気流が安定していて上昇気流を見つけるのも難しそうだ。
We can't go higher if we can't ride the updrafts. We call it flying, but in reality the glider is continuously falling slowly. So if there are no vertical drafts, we'll have to land at some point. But with these wings, we might be...
翼ならいけるかもしれない。
That's Amane saying that. Roger that. If it looks bad, we'll turn around and come back. Ooh. So cool. Sugoi.
あれ？どこ行くんだろう。風車の丘に向かうみたい。届くかな。さあ。
We proceeded to fly the glider across the lake. Our altitude was gradually dropping, but we were alright for the time being.
ケーキは私が見ているから。
Thank you. I had learned how to read the instruments from the simulator, but I still wasn't used to it. We just flew straight forward, and after a short time, the other side of the lake came into view. There we saw the gentle slopes of the hill and the windmills lined up on top. Today the wind was quite soft, so they weren't really turning that much.
なんだろう。
Oh, look who it is! I was just saying this.
どこ？
It's them, the twinses.
ほら、あそこあそこ、こっち来るよ。あ、本当だ。姉さんって昔から目がいいわよね。しかし、やけに低いところを飛んでるのね。
Over there. That's where we saw you flying for the first time, Amane.
あの時か。
That was the day I came back to this town, the day it all began. That time, Kotori was waving her hand at the glider. Did you see her?
それどころじゃなかった。あの日は気流がいい具合に荒れていて、生きた心地がしなかった。
Oh. While we were speaking, we had crossed the lake and were now above the windmills. Just like Amane had done before, we slowly turned above the hill. It felt really strange to look down at the giant windmills from above.
ゆっくり回ってる。変な飛行機だね。あれはグライダーじゃないかしら。グライダー？ええ、多分だけど。グライダー。すごくゆっくり飛ぶんだね。気持ちが良さそう。エンジンを積めばもっと早く飛べるのに。どうしてそうしないのかしら。
Wonder what's up with those two.
葵くん、だいぶ高度が下がってきているぞ。
Roger, heading back. We couldn't stay here for long. We needed to go back across the lake while we still had enough altitude. As we turned back towards the direction of the other side of the lake. I saw people standing on top of the hill. there were two girls, and it seemed like they were looking up at us. I wonder if they also like gliders, just like Kotori. As I let that thought fill my head, we left Windmill Hill behind us.
あ、行っちゃったね。ふわふわしててなんだか頼りなかったわね。うん。でも飛んでるって感じがした。戻ってきたよ。だいぶ低くなってるわね。着陸するみたい。もしもし、葵、聞こえる？
Loud and clear. Now commencing landing.
了解。着陸するって。
Well then, Amane, I'll return the controls to you.
了解。
Amane nodded nervously and gripped the yoke. It's said that landing is the most common time for glider accidents to occur. As it comes in contact with the ground, the glider is very vulnerable to physical damage. Landing is difficult since when you push the yoke forward to lower the altitude, the speed can increase. If you have too much speed, the impact upon landing will be too strong and you won't be able to stop. You might go past the end of the runway and crash. That's why you need to lower the altitude while keeping the speed as low as possible. For that reason, the wings of gliders often have ways to reduce lift when needed. By reducing the lift, the altitude can also be reduced without increasing the speed. Even though a glider is quite simply built, it is equipped with several different devices for takeoff and landing.
降りてきた。いいよいいよ、そのまま。
Bam! Ah! In what could be described as a rough landing, Amane set us down on the ground. At one point, it felt as if we were falling. The glider, upon its return to Earth, sped along for a few meters before the wheel brakes brought it to a stop.
Okaeri!
As soon as the canopy opened, Agea thrust her face inside. We made it! I took off my seatbelt and clambered out of the narrow cockpit. Amane, are you alright?
大丈夫だ。
Amane slowly took off her seatbelt. I helped Amane out of the glider. It had only been a little while, about 10 minutes, but I strangely missed being able to put my feet on the ground.
どうだった？
Kotori, who arrived a little later than Agea, rushed ahead and started firing questions at us. Well, how should I put it? It was awesome! It felt totally incredible. No other impressions come to mind.
やっぱり！
How long were we flying for?
だいたい15分ってとこかな。ねえねえ、風車の丘まで行ったの？
We gotta take Kotori next time, we gotta! Yeah, just for a little while. I got a pretty good look at it.
いいな、いいな。お疲れ様です、天音先輩。
And now she never has to fly again. Agea passed some mineral water to Amane. The cockpit was continually being hit by direct sunlight, was unbearably hot inside.
ありがとう。どうでしたか？視力。以前よりも全然滑空が滑らかでいい感じだった。よし。でも途中でフラフラしてましたよね。ああ、エルロンがピーキーすぎた。少し調整しないと。他には何か問題ありましたか？そうだな。
While Kotori and I were overwhelmed with excitement, Agea and Amane were talking about it in a very matter-of-fact manner.
もう少し飛んでみないとわからないが、今のところそのくらいかな。了解っす。 じゃあすぐエルロンの調整だけしちゃいましょう。
Agea enthusiastically goes over to get the tools.
何してるの？みんな手伝ってよ。今日中に飛べるだけ飛ぶんだから。
The test had only just started. What a great first flight. We did several more test flights. The main objective was to test the main wings we had just completed and check that the instruments were repaired correctly. Also to give me flight training. Thanks to the work I'd put into the simulator, I was able to control the glider from the very beginning. I only realized this from flying the real thing, but the simulator that Amane had made was a pretty accurate simulation of flying. Just as what I'd expected from her. After adjusting the ailerons, I practiced takeoff and landing and was able to perform basic maneuvers. As I returned from our 5th flight, Agea came over to us.
お疲れ。
I groaned as I opened the canopy. It's so hot!
ほい水。
It seemed as though if you wanted to fly in this hot weather, water would be indispensable.
だいぶ慣れてきたんじゃない？
Yeah, my body's used to being in the cockpit now.
さっきの旋回すごく綺麗だったわ。着陸もあまねちゃんよりスムーズだった。
Oh, I hope she didn't hear that.
葵くんは上達が早いな。
Amane spoke in a way that it was hard to interpret whether she was pleased or if she was sulking. It would appear that she still had a complex about her clumsiness. I'm feeling quite worn out. I'm going to take a little break. Getting back on the ground, my legs were a little unsteady. Rather than actually being tired, being in the air for so long had messed up my sense of balance.
十分テストできたし、続きはお昼を食べた後でいいか。そうしますか。
We continued with that line of conversation, and then Kotori said,
あのさ、私も乗りたい。
Take her! Amane looked at me. No, I can't let her ride with me. You're the one with the license, Amane.
でも、もう君の方が上手だ。
I haven't seen that face on her yet. That's new. That might be true for just normal flying, but there was no guarantee that there wouldn't be any problems. If something happened, I wouldn't be able to deal with it.
あまねちゃん、操縦してよ。あんた正気？
Akea responded instinctively, and Amane seemed a little hurt. However, when I was sitting at the back seat, watching Amane at the controls, I certainly did feel quite nervous.
いいの。命をかけるだけの価値はあると思うから。私たちで作った翼だもんね。
Kotori swallowed as she nodded.
あ、わかった。じゃあ、ランチの前にもう一度だけ飛ぼうか。
I've been waiting the whole game for this, for Kotori to finally go in the glider.
やったー！
Kotori flew her arms into the air in excitement.
じゃあ、私がウィンチ操作します。葵、小鳥を後ろに乗せるから手伝って。
Sure. Agea and I lifted Kotori and put her in the back seat.
お尻大丈夫？ゆるくない？うん、ちょうどいい感じ。
What's up, Amane?
葵くんが助けてくれないと思うと不安で。ああ、気持ちはわかりますけど、後ろの人がもっと不安になるんで。平気よ。
As we continued the preparations, Agea waited over by the winch. The launch preparations were complete. I gave Agea the signal to commence the launch.
ワクワク、ワクワク。ワクワク、ワクワク。
Juxtaposition right here.
ワクワク。あれ？
The winch wasn't moving at all. Hey, what's the problem? Agea was waving in our direction. The next moment, puff. Black smoke was coming out of the winch.
なんか煙出てる？あ、本当だ。
I'll be back. Just in case, please release the tow rope for now.
了解。
I checked that Amane had released the tow rope, then ran over to the winch. What's up?
なんか壊れちゃったみたい。
No, say it ain't so. Looking at the black smoke rising up like a signal beacon, Agea cried out, completely at a loss as to what to do. Kotori was a minute away, less than a minute away.
壊れてる。
No! Amane sounded like she was in complete despair as she looked at the inside of the winch, which was covered in oil.
そんな。
I'm going to treat her to some ice cream and a big hug. That's what she's going to get. Kotori, who really wanted to fly, was downhearted. It looked like one of the parts in the dilapidated old machine had broken, and we could no longer use it.
発行前でよかったわ。離陸途中で故障してたら大事故になってたかも。
Amane nodded as if to say, "You're right." Can it be fixed?
自力では難しいだろうな。業者に修理を依頼しないと。
Poor
結構時
Kotori.
間かかるんじゃないですか？1日や2日じゃ無理だろうな。
Even getting someone to come and get such a bulky machine would be a tough job in itself. To tell the truth, I was more worried about the cost of the repair than the time it would take.
ってことは今日のテストはここまでだ。
From her wheelchair, Kotori suddenly went white with shock. So close! Extend the little wings which fly in the sky highly. Just not today. Poor Kotori, she was so close! Tatsuya got one of his contacts to repair the broken winch. It was an old model and there were many rattling parts, so the repairs would take at least a week. We had been so busy up until the day before. Now, suddenly, we didn't know what to do. Stay home and play Go Fish? We were all completely devastated. It wasn't like there was nothing at all for us to do. Before I forgot the feeling of flying, I went back to the simulator, and as always, Amane went back to her drawing board. Kotori opened up a book that she had borrowed from the library and started to read.
ただいまアイス買ってきたよ。
Agea, who had lost our game of rock, paper, scissors, had come back from buying ice cream. She gave out the ice creams to everyone.
小鳥、何読んでんの？ちょっとね、モーニンググローリーのことを調べてるの。私らの最終目標って空飛ぶことじゃないもん。
At some point, the test flight had become our objective, but that was really just a milestone. To go above the clouds was our true objective. We also wanted to do that this summer. After she had finished giving out the ice creams, Agea dug into her own and then slumped down in a chair.
本当なら今頃テスト三昧だったのにな。
There's nothing more we can do right now. We can't fly without the winch. I felt that the simulator wasn't really enough. Why don't you do your homework or something while you have the chance?
もう終わったよ。
Wow, that was quick. When did she have enough spare time to do that?
うちらさ、 夏らしいことなんもやってないよね。
We about to hit up the beach?
夏祭りもいつの間にか終わっちゃったし。
That's because we've been in the garage the whole time. If I had to say, the only kind of summer activity we did was eating that watermelon.
なんか夏っぽいことしたー
Called it.
い。ねえ、どっか泳ぎに行こうよ。
Where can we go? Everyone's gotta be at the pool and the beach, and they'll all be jam-packed.
学校のプールは水泳部が絶賛練習中だったしな。
She must have seen them on the way back from the store, and now she wanted to do it too.
お、そうだ、あるじゃん、泳げるところ。
Oh, you mean that place? As soon as she said that, I knew where she meant.
行こう、泳ぎに、これから。
She stood up excitedly and turned around to look at Amane and Kotabi.
ダメ、無理。なんで？だって学校指定の水着しか持ってないもん。私はそれさえ持ってないぞ。プールの授業を最後に受けたのはいつだったかな。そんなのこれから買いに行けばいいんですよ。
And that's how, being pushed into it by Agea, it was quickly decided that we would be going swimming that afternoon. Well, there's nothing wrong with that, I guess. It was the summer holidays, after all. We were not so lazy that we'd willingly let them go to waste. In the afternoon, we stopped off at the dormitory. It was closer to where we wanted to go. Okay, guys, have you got everything? Alright, let's go! I felt like I was leading the outing, and everyone followed me as I left the dormitory. Our destination was... Six Flags! Nope, that's not Six Flags.
こんな場所があったんだ。
This does look nice.
地元民も知らない穴場スポットよ。
This was no beach resort. It was the shore of a lake. There was sand beneath our feet. The water was nice and we could swim there. And like Age has said, being cut off from the beaten track meant that most people didn't know about it. It was sheltered by forest and cliffs, so it couldn't be seen from afar.
面白い場所だな。
And they brought Hattie. Looking at the waterfront, Hattie flapped his wings happily.
子供の頃ここら辺を探検してて発見したんだよね。
This was our secret place where we'd come to play.
早く着替えて泳ぎましょう。
Just like Hattie, Kotobi was happy to see the water and was excited to go swimming.
あっちのくぼみなら周りから見えないよ。
Agea pointed to a small hollow in the cliff face as she pushed Kotobi's wheelchair along the shore. Because of the sand, if she didn't do that, Kotobi wouldn't be able to go forwards.
葵くん、こっち来ちゃダメだからね。
Okay, I get it. You've always got such a big mouth.
あんたも一応男の子だからあっちで待ってなさい。
Kotobi threw Hattie back towards the shoreline. Well then, I'll get changed too. When I said get changed, all I meant was that I was taking my top off. I was ready wearing my swimming shorts. Hattie looked like he really wanted to go swimming. I guess that once in a while, he'd like to swim in a natural lake, so I brought him with us. It seemed like he was enjoying it. Just hold on a bit longer. Everyone will be ready soon. The obligatory swimsuit part of the VN, huh? I waited with Hattie for a while until finally the girls came back from the shadows of the hollow, wearing the new swimsuits they had just bought.
水着なんて久しぶりだな。
You really are girls after all.
何それ。ひどい、そんな感想。そうだそうだ。
Okay, I'm sorry. Usually, you don't really seem all that feminine, that's all. I continued to stumble over these terrible comments, but I couldn't help it. That's what I thought. I spent basically all day, every day with them, so I didn't really make that distinction between boys and girls. But...
今は感じてるってことだね。
They really did seem a lot more feminine, or rather, I noticed it a lot more now. I usually didn't take much notice, but this reminded me of just how cute they were. So this must be why all the boys in the class envied me.
それではここでお約束の質問タ
Oh
イム。
boy, I can only guess.
データを上書きするけど
They wouldn't
大丈夫？
lead up. They wouldn't do that unless it was leading up to some kind of a pick a path. No, wait. What?
誰の水着が一番気に入りましたか？
Agea surprised me with a really direct question. Okay, we got Kotori, who's embarrassed beyond belief. We got Amane, who's like just there, and we got Agea, who's pressuring Aoi. All three of them were aware that I was looking and seemed to be posing slightly. I wouldn't be able to bluff my way out of this one. I can't pick Amane. That's interesting. Here's the thing.
前のデータ消えるよ。それでいい？
Here's the thing, guys. I know I'm ending it a little early, but come on. Come on, how am I supposed to continue this now, huh? Wouldn't that be a great way to start the continuation of this, is by picking which one of them we like the most? So, cannot pick Amane. We know we're going to pick Kotori. I mean, it's set in stone. Like, we're going the Kotori path. So we will be picking Kotori, but that will be next time. I will be back Tuesday. Looks like I'll be playing. What am I playing on Tuesday? Picking Crisis Wing. That's what I'll be playing on Tuesday. And then I will not be back next Sunday to continue this, because I am going on vacation later this week and I'll be gone the rest of the month. So I will be back 2 weeks from now to continue my playthrough of If My Heart Had Wings. If you want to play this yourself, then better go pick up your copy from PlayAsia while you still can. There are not that many left. It's completely possible, but that by the time I come back 2 weeks from now, it'll be sold out. So, up to you. Thanks for being here, Leandro. On behalf of East Asia Soft, I have been Skull. Have yourselves a great day, a great week, and I will see you all next time. Bye-bye.